It usually happened in ordinary moments. Someone interrupted you before you finished your thought. Someone dismissed an idea you had been quietly working on. Someone spoke to you as if your effort, your discipline, and your potential were smaller than they really were. Nothing dramatic happened. The conversation continued. People kept talking. But something inside you tightened. You felt the familiar urge to explain yourself, to prove that you understood more than they assumed, to show that you were more capable than they believed. And then, one day, something subtle changed. The impulse was still there. But instead of reacting immediately, you noticed it. You felt the pressure to be recognized. You felt the old need to convince. You felt the quiet fear of being underestimated. And for the first time, you simply watched it. That pause lasted only a moment. No one else noticed. But something in you understood that the experience was no longer the same. Because while they were still responding to the version of you they thought they knew, another part of you had stepped back and started seeing the pattern clearly. Chosen one. Most people think the hardest part of growth is proving everyone wrong. It isn't. The hardest part is realizing how much of your identity was shaped by people who never fully believed in you. Their doubt affected you. It made you question yourself. It made you work harder. It made you carry a quiet pressure that followed you for years. But it also forced you to build something stronger than approval. And once you understand what their doubt created inside you, the story changes. They did not stop your growth. They became part of what shaped it. You probably remember what it felt like. Not one dramatic moment. A pattern. 1,000 small interactions where you sensed that people were measuring you through a narrow and incomplete lens. They saw that you were quiet. They saw that you were thoughtful. They saw that you were not constantly demanding attention. And they confused those qualities with weakness. Your restraint looked like uncertainty. Your patience looked like hesitation. Your silence looked like a lack of confidence. People often trust what is most visible. The loudest voice appears strongest. The quickest response appears most certain. The person who talks the most appears most capable. And because your strength was developing internally, many people failed to recognize it. They saw your current results. They did not see the pressure you were carrying. They saw your calm demeanor. They did not see the discipline behind it. They saw the version of you that was still emerging. They did not see what was taking shape beneath the surface. That experience leaves a mark. You begin to notice how often you are misunderstood. How often your intentions are overlooked. How often your effort goes unrecognized. And even if you do not say anything, you feel the pressure of being seen inaccurately. At first, it hurts. Later, it becomes familiar. Eventually, it becomes part of the environment you are navigating. You learn how to keep going even when no one fully understands what you are building. And without realizing it, that begins shaping your identity. The most difficult part is not their opinion. It is the moment their opinion begins to influence your relationship with yourself. At first, the doubt stays external. Then you hear the same questions in your own mind. Maybe they are right. Maybe I am not as capable as I believe. Maybe I am trying too hard. Maybe I am missing something everyone else can see. These thoughts rarely arrive as dramatic declarations. They appear in quiet moments. Before you speak, before you take a risk, before you trust your own instincts, you start adjusting your behavior. You explain more than necessary. You work harder than anyone realizes. You try to anticipate criticism before it arrives. You become increasingly aware of how you are perceived. And while this can sharpen your discipline, it can also create a subtle dependence. You begin measuring your progress by whether others finally acknowledge what you have known all along. That is an exhausting way to live. Because recognition is unpredictable. Some people will never update their view of you. They will continue seeing the older version. The quieter version. The version that was still figuring things out. And if your confidence depends on their ability to see clearly, you remain emotionally tied to their limitations. This is where the real tension begins. Part of you knows you are growing. Another part still longs for external confirmation. And until you understand what is happening, you can spend years trying to earn belief from people who were never capable of offering it. Over time, a different realization begins to form. You notice that every experience of being underestimated produced a choice. You could shrink, or you could adapt. Many times, you adapted. You became more observant. You paid closer attention to how people behaved. You learned to read tone, timing, and intention. You became more disciplined. You developed resilience. You learned how to continue working without immediate validation. That is not weakness. That is conditioning. Pressure was teaching you something. It was training you to build internally. While others relied on recognition, you were forced to rely on repetition. While others drew confidence from praise, you learned to keep moving without it. While others were encouraged early, you developed in relative obscurity. This changes the structure of your confidence. Instead of being built on how people respond to you, it begins to form around what you repeatedly do. The evidence accumulates quietly. You complete work no one sees. You continue despite uncertainty. You return after disappointment. You notice that pressure no longer affects you the same way. You catch yourself before reacting. You recognize familiar patterns while they are unfolding. Someone doubts you, and instead of collapsing internally, you observe the moment. That shift is profound. Before, you absorbed other people's perceptions. Now, you study them. Before, their opinion felt like a verdict. Now, it becomes information. Before, doubt threatened your identity. Now, it reveals where someone else's understanding ends. This is where awareness changes everything. You realize your silence was never emptiness. It was focus. Your restraint was never fear. It was control. Your distance was never disconnection. It was discernment. And once you see that clearly, the story begins to reorganize. Awareness brings relief. It also brings discomfort. Because once you understand your patterns, you can no longer participate unconsciously. You begin noticing things in real time. A familiar conversation feels strangely heavy. An interaction that once seemed normal now feels forced. You recognize subtle attempts to pull you back into roles you have outgrown. The peacekeeper. The over-explainer. The person who works endlessly to be understood. You start catching these dynamics much earlier. And because you see them sooner, your response changes. You pause. You take longer to answer. You feel less urgency to defend yourself. You become more selective about where your energy goes. To others, this may look like distance. In reality, it is increased clarity. You are no longer willing to spend your energy maintaining patterns that keep you misaligned. This creates pressure. Some relationships begin to shift. Some habits lose their appeal. Certain environments stop feeling like home. You may feel alone in this phase. Not because you are failing, because identity is reorganizing. The structures that once supported your old adaptations are being questioned. And while this can feel disorienting, it is also a sign that your awareness is becoming stronger than your conditioning. That is a significant turning point. You are no longer moving automatically. You are choosing. Eventually, the process becomes easier to understand. You stop seeing your past only as a series of disappointments. You start recognizing what those experiences required you to build. Patience, discipline, emotional control, persistence, a capacity to continue even when no one is applauding. This is where self-belief becomes more stable. Not because you suddenly feel confident every day, because your confidence is no longer based on emotion alone. It is based on proof. You have watched yourself respond differently under pressure. Situations that once overwhelmed you now slow you down. Moments that once triggered immediate reactions now create space. You pause. You observe. You choose. That is evidence. You notice what you tolerate. You notice what you no longer tolerate. You notice how your decisions have become more aligned. Certain invitations lose their appeal. Certain conversations no longer require a response. Certain dynamics dissolve the moment you stop carrying them. What remains is simpler, more honest, better matched to who you are becoming. The external world may still be catching up, but internally, something important has stabilized. You trust your own awareness. You trust your observations. You trust the evidence of your behavior. And because of that, belief becomes less fragile. It no longer depends on praise. It no longer disappears when someone misunderstands you. It becomes part of your structure. At some point, people begin to notice the difference. The same silence they once misread now carries weight. The same restraint they interpreted as weakness now reflects composure. The same consistency they overlooked now produces visible results. Their perception changes. Yours no longer needs to. Because you are not moving to prove them wrong. You are moving from a more stable identity. You know what pressure built inside you. You know what your patterns once were. You know what awareness has changed. And you know that your confidence does not depend on whether someone else recognizes it. This creates a quieter form of strength. Less reactive. Less performative. Less concerned with immediate validation. More grounded. More deliberate. More internally consistent. You still care, but you no longer organize your life around being fully understood. You trust your own perception. You trust the process that shaped you. And you move with a calm certainty that was not available to you before. This is what they never saw. Not because it was absent, because it was being formed beneath the surface. For a long time, you may have believed their doubt was a disadvantage. Something you had to overcome. Something that delayed your growth. But the truth is more complex. Their doubt created pressure. That pressure forced adaptation. Adaptation led to awareness. Awareness reorganized your identity. An identity changed the way you move through the world. They did not see what was happening. They saw uncertainty. They did not see the discipline. They saw silence. They did not see the internal work. They saw a version of you that was still becoming. But you know what was taking shape. You know how many times you continued without recognition. You know how many times you chose growth over approval. You know what you have built. And that is why their belief is no longer required. You have something stronger. Proof. Not something you announce. Something you live. The people who doubted you did not define your story. They became part of what shaped it. And that changed everything. This is obsidian within. Forged in the shadows. Destined for more.